This episode starts with Fluttershy taking care of an animal friend. I'll be right back. I need to give my computer another shot of penicillin. Angel comes in and tries to tell Fluttershy that she's late.
For a very important date.
Pop culture reference. Awesome. Wait, why are the dresses at Fluttershy's? Never mind. She manages to leave. Eventually. Meanwhile, Rainbow Dash is trying to get Celestia's royal guards to move.
Anyway. Is the pay good? Hello? Anybody home?
I've seen this gag before. A lot. And I don't remember it ever being funny.
Ooh, you're good. Too good. I'm bored.
Me too. Fluttershy, however, can't get past the guards until Twilight lets her in. Spike seems to be baking up some pastries for the party while the cakes are serving them to the princess. They're obviously a little nervous about hosting a party like this, but if any pony is more nervous than them, it's Twilight. Twilight wants Celestia to like all of her friends, who aren't exactly enjoying the party. Wait, is that a ham sandwich? I thought the ponies were vegetarians. At least Pinkie is enjoying herself. A little too much. Yay, a joke that actually works! Or it would if they didn't replay Pinkie's gasp from the first episode. We learn that Celestia is a little bit of a prankster. You could have fooled me. For her next trick, she shows Fluttershy a bird that looks like it's ready to be put out of its misery. All the while, she's talking about how she just loves animals. This bird is Philomena, and Celestia is forced away before she can explain what the bird is, why it's in such a condition, and how they can avoid this whole episode. And then the bird goes missing. 3 guesses and the first 2 don't count. That's right, Fluttershy stole the bird, but she does have good intentions, which makes thievery a-okay. She wants to help it get better, and she keeps talking about how she wants to help it get better. Alright, since this episode doesn't want to get started, let's talk about that bird. It's disgusting. You should never, ever make something disgusting the focal part of an episode, for obvious reasons. But for what it's worth, it could have been a lot worse. Then we begin the shenanigans of Fluttershy trying to cure that bird. It starts with her trying to give it bed rest, but that delves into an interesting gag that's almost funny. Fluttershy tries to give it medicine, but the bird doesn't go for it, until...
I expected that. Always works.
Hey, only Pinkie's allowed to do that. Then Fluttershy tries soup, but the bird is too stubborn. And then this happens. Once again, it's almost funny. So Fluttershy tries to cheer up Philomena by singing, and the bird responds by puking in her face. Ew. Fluttershy turns her bathroom into a sauna, and when it seems like the bird is about to be cured, we get the creepiest Fluttershy face I've ever seen. The sauna doesn't work, and the bird starts losing feathers. Fluttershy then tries other means to cure the bird. They don't work, and come off as disgusting more often than not. And bird with tape is even more disgusting. Twilight comes by for what she makes apparent as no real reason at all.
Hi, Fluttershy. I just wanted to drop by and say thank you so very much for making such a good impression on the princess today.
Charlotte Fullerton, this is what we call shoehorning. Don't do it. Ever. She notices that Celestia's pet is with Fluttershy, and she understandably freaks out about it. Then they argue in a gag that goes on for a bit too long. They eventually decide to return the bird to Celestia, until they get confronted by the royal guards just outside of Fluttershy's cottage. They tell us what we already know, and Twilight tries to get them to leave in a couple of other gags that don't quite pan out. But now Twilight knows that they can't return the bird because the guards are looking for it, and they can get in big trouble if Celestia finds out that one of them took her pet.
She might banish you from Equestria, or throw you in a dungeon. Or banish you and then throw you in a dungeon in the place that she banishes you to.
Nah, she'd never do that. Fluttershy tells Twilight they need to cure the... Oh, never, ever do something like that again. Ever! So, Twilight forces the bird to eat the medicine, and puts a cone on her, and then puts her under a shade to get some bed rest. Then Twilight discovers the soup, and gets surprisingly sadistic as she tries to force the soup down the bird's throat, and they're surprised when the bird gets out. Then we do the Benny Hill thing again. It's a bit funnier than the one they used in the Ticketmaster, but that brings me to my next point. You already did this gag. All throughout this episode, you've been using very cliched jokes and gags that have been done and done better on other shows, and now you are rehashing yourself. Speaking of jokes that don't pan out, Rainbow Dash sees that Fluttershy and Twilight are running, and thinks that they're running a race, for no reason whatsoever. They eventually come to the bird, who is standing on top of a fountain in the center of town. Fluttershy tries to call it down, but when it loses its last feather, it dies. Over dramatically. That's dark. Fluttershy tries to catch it, but it bursts into flame, and it makes her cry. I'm going to save my outrage for this bird in just a minute. Celestia comes in, and Twilight tells her that the bird is dead. And Twilight and Fluttershy fight each other for the blame. Eventually, Fluttershy wins the fight and admits that she took the bird in order to try to get it healed. Celestia sadly looks at the pile of ash, and then says that it's fooling around. Then the pile of ash turns into a bright, flaming phoenix. And the bird had Fluttershy going all this time for a nice little prank. If you've seen Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, this twist wouldn't surprise you. Otherwise, this is a major punch to the face. All of the trouble that Fluttershy went through happened because some dumb damn bird was bored.
So, aren't you gonna banish me? Or throw me in a dungeon? Or banish me, then throw me in a dungeon in the place that you banished me to?
Of course not, my little pony. Where on earth would you get such an idea?
I had no idea. But no, we learned that if Fluttershy asked if the bird was a phoenix, this whole thing could have been avoided. Or if Twilight asked in all those years that she studied under Celestia as her own personal student. I'm going to start out by saying that I abhor gross-out humor. So for all intents and purposes, I should hate this episode. I do, but not for that reason. The humor is actually pretty meh. Probably because the gross-out humor fails. Usually when gross-out humor fails, it's because they forgot the humor. Here, it fails because the animation style looks too nice and clean. They cannot make anything look truly disgusting, and that is a relief. The rest of the humor in this episode is somewhere around meh, and that's generally the consensus. Everyone considers this episode pretty meh, and I'll tell you why. Almost none of the gags pan out because we've seen them so many times before. They pretty much become cliched at this point. I mean, we've seen the British Guard stuff, we've seen the pies of the face, and we've obviously seen the Benny Hill skit because they've already used it. Two things drag this episode down to the hate category. One is the fact that Twilight had no idea what her mentor's pet was. I mean, in all those years, you never asked what your mentor's pet was. You've never even seen it in its full glory. The other is that ending. It makes me really mad with the treatment Fluttershy gets in this episode because that bird thought it would be funny.
No hard feelings.
You represent the element of kindness. I don't. So I don't have to forgive that bird until it's roasting on a spit.
Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear?